Good afternoon. Welcome to the communication skills class. Now, in this class, we are going to look at the principles of communication skills, rather the concepts of communication skills. Now, let's look at what communication is to start with. Communication is the activity of conveying meaningful information. So communication requires a sender, a message, a channel, and an intended recipient. And communication can occur across vast distance in the time and space. So, as we look at communication skills, we need to understand what communication requires. Communication requires that the communicating parties ensure an area of communicative commonality, which simply means if there are to be communication between two parties, there should be something common both parties are able to understand. That's what this point is. So the communication process is complete once the receiver has understood the sender. If the receiver misunderstands the sender, then there is no communication. That's what this commonality simply means, to make something common. Okay, so now the communication process. Let's look at it. So as you can see from this diagram here, there must be a source. There must be a channel where the message will actually be disseminated into. And there must be receivers that are able to receive the message, and there must be a feedback coming from the receiver. This is what you call communication processing cycle. As you can see, the sender has to encode the message into a channel, and the receiver, or rather the audience, has to decode the message and later on give a feedback. Okay, so now, communication is a series of experience of one ear, right? So if you're able to hear something, there is communication. Secondly, smelling. If you're able to smell something, you can interpret what that is. Okay, someone wants to give me some salt or chips because you can smell them. Even seeing, okay, seeing something, there is communication, right? If you see someone smiling, then you can see, okay, you can understand that someone is happy with whatever you are saying to that person. Even touching, okay? If got our colleagues who cannot see, but able to understand certain things by touch. You can see this is big, this is small, okay, this is rough, small, because you're able to touch. Okay, so able to understand what you're touching. And through taste, right? You can taste that this is sweet, this is bitter because of taste, right? In the ancient times, the doctors used to tell us if someone has sugar or diabetes by testing their urine. So you can see that testing is also another means of communication. Okay. So total communication process indicates that 16% is through reading, 9% is through writing, 30% is through speaking, and 45% is when people are listening. So levels of communication. We've got verbal, okay, where you actually express yourself through words and sound. And there's also extra verbal, where implication of words and phrases, semantic. Those are extra verbals. Okay, they are the additions that we add to the actual words that we converse. There's non-verbal, which is gestures, postures, and also movement. Symbolic, or rather visual, okay, is also another level of communication. Now let's talk about the barriers in communication. So let's look at the barriers that has to do with the communicator. Unwillingness to say something different is also a barrier. Unwillingness to relate to others differently. Unwillingness to learn new approaches. And also, lack of self-confidence can be a barrier to communication. Lack of enthusiasm, okay, or zeal is also another barrier of communication. Voice quality. The voice is not coming out well, and the quality of the voice is not good. It can be also a barrier to communicate. Prejudice. Able to judge, okay, others even before understanding them or understanding the situation is also a barrier. These people, they cannot understand this concept. Already they become a barrier to yourself because you can't communicate in a manner that you come out well to people that are able to learn from you. Now let's look at the barriers that has to do with the communicator, okay, which we are continuing from the previous page. Disagreement between verbal and non-verbal messages. All right. Imagine you're conversing information that talks about good news, but your face looks like as if you're crying. That is a misunderstanding. Negative self-image, right? No doubt. Lack of feedback is also a barrier, right? Just talking non-stop without getting feedback from the audience, that can also be. Lack of motivation and training. You don't have training, for instance, in communication skills, you're going to have problems as you communicate. Language and vocabulary levels. This also is a problem when it comes to communication to a communicator. Lack of self-awareness. Okay, rather focus on yourself, how you are coming out, focus so much on the words that you are going to convey to people. If you don't pay attention closely to all these things, you can become a barrier to yourself. How about the barrier that has to do with the receiver? Selective perception, right? This I cannot listen to this, I can listen to this. I can't understand things coming from this area or from this organization. That can become a problem, right? And willingness to change, right? Lack of interest in the topic is also a barrier. Prejudice and belief system, right? And also rebuttal instincts. Okay, this is also a big problem to a receiver who actually trying to get what someone is saying. Okay, personal value system, right? And here are now internal and external factors, right? This can also disturb someone in terms of concentration and also listening to what the person is saying. Now let's talk about external barriers in communication. External barriers in communication. The environment, okay, the environment which comprises of the venue, the effect of noise, the temperature in the room, this can be the barrier to communication. Other people, status and education. Right? Imagine you are talking to people that have for low education, you find that they're going to easily misunderstand you. So that way, communication becomes a problem. Time is also a problem. When you go overboard, you go beyond the normal time for presentation or for conversing with people, the number of time they're supposed to converse something, you go beyond that, above that, you find that people stop concentrating because they have actually switched off. What are the basic 5 reasons we do not listen? Okay? Listening is very hard work. Okay, because listening simply means silent. Because if you look at these word letters of listening, they're the same as silent. So people, they are never silent while they're listening. So that is a problem. Competition. Okay? Competition also makes us, okay, not to completely get what, okay, someone is trying to converse. Okay? Then the rush for action. When talking to someone, explain the procedures, how to do a certain thing, they'll quickly want to go to the action. So they'll miss out 1 or 2 from the instructions that are provided. Again, the speed difference, okay, speed difference. In case you are typing, someone is talking, you're typing, If you're very slow in terms of typing, you again will miss out. Imagine that you are typing the court session or any meeting session. Now, if you're very slow, you find that certain things you miss them in the meeting because of your speed. Lack of training, listening also requires that you get some training, otherwise you're going to have difficulties. All right, now let us look at effective communication. But before that, let's watch a video.
That we need to have present in the meal. How do we put together a great meal? Well, let's think about it this way. There are really 5 ingredients that have to be present all the time for great communication to be possible. The first ingredient is clarity. How do you make your point clearly? It's got to be clear. The second ingredient is brevity. How do you get to the point quickly? Not waste people's time. The third ingredient is context. How do you help people see how your point or how your message fits in for them? How does it make sense for them? The fourth ingredient is impact. How do you make it stand out? How do you make it memorable? And the fifth ingredient is value, which is fairly self-explanatory. How do you make your message valuable for the people who are consuming it? 5 ingredients that will go into every communication deal: clarity, brevity, context, impact, value. Okay, great. So we've got our ingredients. Now the next question is, how much of each ingredient do we need? And just like cooking a great meal, that's going to depend. Different meals are going to need different ingredients. They're going to need the ingredients in different proportions. And different audiences are going to have different palates. They're going to want different things out of their meal. So the really savvy communicator is going to look at their row of ingredients, who's going to be able to determine, based on the audience that they're preparing their message for, what ingredients need to be dominant. So how do you figure it out? Well, when do we need clarity to be an important ingredient? Well, when there's a lot of complexity around the situation or around the issue, you need to make sure that your message includes plenty of clarity so people understand what this is really about. When do we need a bit of brevity? Well, when time is short, when we think attention spans are short, when your audience is going to be very, very senior, you want to make sure you have enough of the brevity ingredient. How about context? Well, maybe when there's unfamiliarity with the topic, or maybe when you're communicating with people that have a lot on their mind, or are walking in to listen to you, having just come from something very, very confusing, you probably want to make sure you use plenty of the ingredient context. How about impact? When do we need to have a lot of impact in our messaging? Well, when there's a lot of noise, when we really need to work hard to make it memorable, and when we really want it to stand out. We think that's going to be hard to achieve. We've got to make sure we add plenty of impact. And then the fifth and final is value. And I think when there's skepticism, when there's choice, when there's competition, when a decision has to be made, and there are other choices that could be made, we have to work hard to make sure that there's plenty of value in the meal that we're creating. All 5 of these ingredients are going to be present in every meal that you create, in every communication that you put together. You always want to make sure that you have some clarity and some brevity and some context and some impact and some value. But depending upon who you're cooking for, depending on who you're preparing for, you're going to make choices of which of those ingredients needs to be most dominant. Think about your communication when you're preparing a meal for an audience that you want to impress, and you want them to have a great experience. And different audiences have different palates, which means you have to adjust the ratios of the ingredients depending upon the situation.
Okay, so now let's talk about improving our communication and listening skills. So the first one is by not being preoccupied, then being open-minded and non-defensive, and minimize interruptions. Then effective listening is hearing, interpreting when necessary, understanding the message and relate to it. That's what effective listening is about. So by asking questions, you might also acquire this skill of listening and understanding material very well. So 7% words are only labeled and the listeners put them in their own interpretation of the speaker's words, right? Then 38% are paralinguistic, the way in which something is said, the accent, tone, voice, modulation is important to the listener. Then 55% body language, what a speaker looks like while delivering a message affects the listener's understanding most. Okay. Types of body language. There's posture, gestures, there's eye contact, orientation, there's presentation, and looks, and expressions or emotions. How do you go about establishing rapport? You need self-confidence. You must understand people. You must be enthusiastic. You must make eye contact. You must be interested in them, right? Now let's look at the communication flow in an organization. Communication flow in an organization. There is downward vertical flow, okay, which is usually done from the senior management to the mid management all the way to the lower management. So the communication that is done from top management to lower management is called downward vertical flow of information. Okay. What about the upward vertical flow? It's the opposite. It comes from the lower management or mid management to senior management. Then you've got also horizontal flow, the flow of information which is done at the same level. Okay, top management versus top management, mid management versus mid management. And there's also the diagonal communication, which is done across functional departments. Okay, that is called diagonal communication, as you can see from the diagram below here. Now, talking about written communication, what is the purpose of written communication? We use written communication most frequently to, one, to summarize the keywords, write a response, respond to the other written or oral communication, establish a formal basis for the communication, record the process of communication, provide a source of historical data, express corporate strategy and ideologies, and lend credibility to our utterances. So this is the purpose of why we should put things in writing. Continues. It also indicates our intent that the communication be viewed as important. So want to indicate that this information I'm trying to convey is important, you put it in writing. When access a wider audience, if you write, you access the wider audience, and then you ensure the accuracy of the message to all parties concerned. You also share goals, vision, and understanding if you write your ideas. Then information and the data interpreted independent of the interpersonal skills if you write. So now what are the forms of written communication? We have the memoranda, the letters, the notes, okay, magazine articles, instructions, databases, books, so on and so forth, as you can see from here. Now, for the purpose of written communication within the business context, the forms that you need to make best use are letters, memoranda, the briefs, and the reports. As letters, memos, and briefs are the most frequent form of written correspondence within or between organizations, we shall start by examining these formats. Let's look at the purpose of the letter. The purpose of the letter. In what circumstances are letters most used as form of business correspondence? They're basically meant for external communication. Okay? Introduction or prospecting to new clients, or describing the purpose of other enclosures within the correspondence, such as product launches, dinner function, invitation, and so on and so forth. So responding to complaints, you can use a letter summarizing the key points, arranging future meetings, updating progress reports, and also job application. The letters can be of good use. Use of business correspondence to impress. Okay, so I, in this case, what is the purpose of correspondence? M, plan and structure main points. P, open and close your letter. R, to whom are you sending the letter? E, what tone do you want to adopt? S, style, kiss. Okay, which means keep it short and simple. S, check for errors or omissions, even legal verification requirements. So this is how you write a good letter that will impress, right? For example, for this letter here, okay, so you can see, okay, this letter helps to communicate the telephone conversation that was held on 24 June, okay. So now you can see that the alternate of the date, as you can see, the salutation, the reference, and the main body, as you can see from here. And you need to close, okay, to close the letter, okay. So even the response letter should follow the pattern of the date, okay, the salutation, the reference, and the closing remarks, as you can see, right? So letter of application, the standard format. A letter of application should be correctly addressed, dated, so on and so forth. Acknowledgement of the source of advertisement, just to be there. Make a formal application statement, and link to the advertised portion of your own current position and aspiration. So this is how we're supposed to write cover letter. Internal communication or memo. So a memo should have the to, the from, the date, and subject, which we call reference, and also the main body. This is an example of a memo. So you can see to, from, the date, the subject, and the main body. Okay. So what's the purpose of the memo? So memos are ideal for interdepartmental correspondence where formal response need to be noted and acted upon. So basically, if you want people to work on it and you want that to stick, okay, you must use a memo that is within the organization. So clarification of reports. So reports can be classified in the following way. Both regular and routine reports, okay, which includes safety and healthy, maintenance, progress, sales, and financial reports. We have occasional reports, which includes accident, disciplinary, local authority, and others. And we've got also specially commissioned reports, which includes market research and investigation, market forecasting, the IT strategy, so on and so forth. So informal reports looks like this, and this basically is a formal, is a memo type of report. where you do, okay, where the form, where the report is supposed to go back, or it's coming from. Then there should be introduction, there should be findings, right? There should be the conclusion and the recommendation. So basically 5 components: the title, the terms of reference, the procedures, the findings, conclusion, and also recommendation. So a memo type of report follows the memo arrangement, okay? As you can see, the subject becomes the title of a report, and the paragraphs are these others: the terms of reference, the procedures, findings, and the conclusion, and also recommendation. Okay. What about a formal report? A formal report, as you can see, one is terms of reference, procedure, findings, as I alluded to, conclusion and recommendation. And it has to be signed on behalf of the quality team included it. Okay. So, well, this is how far we can go in terms of the lessons that has to do with the communication skills. So I encourage you to watch the video once again so that it can stick in your mind and able to have the skills you need in conveying your ideas to people, and people should understand you better once you follow this video. So for more videos, people, subscribe to PERLONGS Computing YouTube channel so that you can enjoy all these updates that can help you in your daily life and also in your exams. Thanks very much.